Yes, a very good evening to you watching UBC TV. My name is Michael Jordan Lukomwa, and every Tuesday this kind of time, I'm here with a talk show, Pick a Point, where our target is that by the end of the show, at least you've learned something, as in you have picked a point for the good of your life, for the good of a change in your life, and that's why we are UBC Inspiring Uganda. Now, this week, we are commemorating the World AIDS Day, and it's time to reflect on why the disease is rampant, why the persistent, who has to do what, why, and where. This is the time. And again, we also have the 16 days of focusing on violence against gender-based violence mainly. And that is where we're going to be moving this evening. We want to know more about HIV and how we can avoid it and things like that, especially among the young women and the young people in general, because we are the biggest percentage in this country. So I'm joined by a social worker here with me. Her name is Hazra Okem. She's a program manager with MEMPROW, a civil society organization. You're welcome, Hazra.
Thank you, Michael.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you today?
Yes, like I said in my intro, we're commemorating, not celebrating actually. We can't celebrate sadness. We can't celebrate problems.
Yes.
We are commemorating World AIDS Day this week.
Yes.
Why do you think HIV and AIDS are still rampant, even when the government, the international community, everyone has done everything, I would say, to put a stop at this problem?
The prevalence rates of HIV in Uganda are still high compared to many countries in the sub-Saharan Africa. So we, as somebody who has worked with young people, because I believe it's the young people who hold the future of this country.
Definitely.
So as young people, what is the problem? Why these rates continue to escalate? And one of the, in our day-to-day engagements with the young people, one of the reasons is the limited access of information among these people. You may find that many young people believe in myths and stereotypes of HIV, on HIV. They will tell you a story that, for example, if you sleep with an HIV-infected person and you swallow a couple of Panadols, then the virus won't survive. So the different myths and stereotypes that people have gone ahead to spread on HIV and AIDS do not give the young people the right information. So we realize that the limited access of information on HIV is one of the reasons. Young people are afraid to go to health centers. Young people are afraid to read about this epidemic. They're telling themselves, if I read about it, so what? And then
people still don't take the HIV issue serious.
I must say, it's until it gets to them. It's until they've seen it. That's when they actually realize it's serious.
So what are we going to do in that kind of a situation?
I believe if the young people are equipped with information, and if our health centers are made youth-friendly. Have you been to a health center where you are actually scared to go in there? The environment is not user-friendly to a young person.
What do you mean by that, Hazra?
If you go to a health center, it's, first of all, the privacy may not be there. You've gone to, for example, take an HIV test. And here comes a health worker reading out your name. So-and-so, Michael, come in.
God forbid, of course.
I know, surely. So and then sometimes even the health centers do not have designated areas for maybe sharing that, okay, you're now actually HIV positive. It's not the end of the road. You can live positively and happily. So our health centers are one of the reasons we found out young people do not actually go to. They are not youth-friendly, if I must say. Okay. And so perhaps it's one of the things that we need to work on, you know, creating youth-friendly centers for HIV. I cannot totally discard that there are some actions that have been done to make sure that youth can access information, but the gap is still there. We still need to encourage youth.
A lot still needs to be done.
A lot still needs to be done in terms of access to information.
Okay, now we have this other issue, to me, which still has a connection with HIV and AIDS. We have the gender-based violence, 16 days of, are we celebrating or commemorating?
I must say it's not celebrating or
Okay.
commemorating. It's actually creating awareness.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, so they're about creating awareness of gender-based
Yes,
violence.
the 16 days of
Do people
creating.
know what gender-based violence is?
If you met somebody and asked them, what is gender-based violence?
Like I'm going to ask you.
It will be an ambiguous term. Sometimes we're like, oh, those are terms of NGOs, those are terms of civil societies. But actually, when you break it down and say, this is the violence that happens to someone because of their gender, say, for example, based on the fact that you're either a man or a woman. So what are these violences that are happening?
Exactly, I was going to ask you, is it a slap,
And so
an
we are,
insult?
this violence runs from being physical, emotional, economical, social, and we can, as a civil society organization, we know that it's rampant among women more than the men. Like the current rate of gender-based violence in Uganda is 51%.
Among women?
Among women. 1 in 5 women has experienced sexual violence. That their first sexual encounter was not by consent. And yet, when you look at the men, it's 1 in 10. So it's not an equal scale. So this is why we need to come out and say, okay, this is an issue of gender. It's a gender-based issue. The violence is more among the women. So what are we doing about it? The women are being denied a right to work. Women are being beaten. And the society has sealed it as a sign of love. And when your husband beats you, they love you, which is a total lie.
Do these things still exist?
They do exist, surprisingly.
The notions of when your husband slaps you, then he loves you.
Yes.
Women are still denied a right to work.
Yes.
Can people believe you when they hear this?
It does happen.
Women are doing every kind of work today.
It
Women are
does
even
happen.
driving taxis. Women are driving trucks.
If you can say this
women are in construction.
This is happening in the urban centers. But when you move further, the levels of empowerment are lesser and lesser as you move out of the urban settings, where women are being told not to eat certain foods as they are looked as taboos. And if you look at the underlying reason, they're actually patriarchal reasons.
In this era.
In this era. Men are still treated as the supreme and women are on the second position. So the women have not been given equal privileges, equal rights, and we're saying in these 16 days, what can we do? We need to reach out to people and actually make them understand that gender-based violence is rampant in Uganda. It happens. It's in our work life, everyday life, in families, in institutions.
There is a problem.
Yes.
That gender-based violence always is looked at so much into protecting the women. Yes. You have even said it yourself that the women are so much of the victims. They're so much beaten by the men, forced sexually and things like that.
Yes.
All this happened to the men. Do you agree?
Yes, it happens.
Don't you think the reason there is rampant is because whoever comes out to bring up a solution looks at only the women?
Well, of course, now that, because as a low-developed country, we face a steep learning curve in terms of how to address these issues. That's why you find that people have moved on to only working with women as the victims, but also working with the perpetrators and the institutions that the women thrive in. The different sectors, the work institutions, the leadership positions. Even in Uganda, how many female MPs do we have? How many male MPs do we have? Even when we have the government has taken an affirmative action of having a woman member of parliament, we still don't have equal slots of men and women.
And still one wonders, we have very many women MPs. Every district has a woman member of parliament. And there are other members of parliament who are female taking these other slots that where they compete with men, and they even win.
So
how come there are still challenges to do with the women and their protection, even when one would say women are in charge?
So my concern would then be, if you listen to the political process in this country, the sexual violence is rampant. Very many members of parliament, the women, they'll come up and say the sexual violence during the politics has made so many women members of parliament to drop out of the race. So indeed, we are having challenges in achieving equal numbers of both men and women. Yes.
Is there any way this gender-based violence exposes people, women,
to
HIV infections?
Yes. HIV, when you look at our cultural settings, you find that HIV is embedded in violence, and violence is an outcome of HIV. I'll explain what I mean.
Go on.
For example, when you have discordant couples, one being positive and another being negative, and should one find out the status of the other, and in most cases, the women are the negative, the husband is positive. And the husband is positive. And the man will still blame the wife for reasons. She's not been cooking well, she's not been doing the house chores very well, that's why he went out to look for other women that infected him. So again, she's being blamed for him being positive. Yet if the woman is the positive one, she'll be battered almost to death. She's a disgrace. How could she have HIV and the man does not? So HIV, so you see that from the fact that you have HIV, it has led to violence. But also the violence in homes forces couples or women, to find to
find other spouses.
To find other, that could be one of them, but rarely. I would like to say from a perspective of a woman that violence, it's very rare that you find a woman running out there it's the violence in homes that will spur up such an activity that she would try to go and, try to find other spouses. But so violence is an outcome of HIV, and HIV could be a cause for the violence that happens.
Based on what you said at the start of this conversation we are having, it's like the vice is so rampant in the rural areas. Did I get you well?
Yes, but we cannot discard the fact that it also happens in the urban.
Yes.
The margins may be higher in the rural, but they also happen in the urban.
What are those factors that make the margins higher in the rural areas?
Well, again, it comes back to information access. What do people know? What are they doing? Because if people have information, then they're able to make right choices and decisions on the different issues.
Okay. So, I'm looking at a situation. You also mentioned of our cultural values that enhance or boost issues to do with social violence. Gender-based violence.
Gender-based violence.
How does that happen in the first place?
Okay. You see, I'll share an example of when a girl and a boy is born. When a boy is born, there's so much jubilation. You've given me a son. And when a girl is born, usually in the central they say, that is what? Sugar.
And what is wrong
with that? They attach the girl to bride price. While the boy is looked at and a heir to property. So right from birth, the boy is put on a higher scale And the girl is believed that my final destination is a marriage.
But I think
that
by the time anyone or something is
price.
attached to sale, that means it is of value.
Would you say, because when you look at a traditional marriage, they bring sugar, salt, bananas. But look, how is that compared to owning land, owning estates? Would you say that is better than owning land and estates? So right from the start, the boy is put at a higher scale where the girl believes her final destination is marriage. So as she's growing up, she knows this is my end point, where the boy is brought up to think, okay, I have to manage these estates, I have to own such and such property. So the culture, our culture is so entrenched on patriarchal values that men are put as the supreme, while the women are the inferior ones. So even in meetings, when you go to a meeting, in working class people, they'll ask the woman, take the minutes, even when she has a higher position. And you're asking why? So it takes an empowered woman to say, no, I'm your boss. Come on, you have to take my minutes. So I believe what I'm saying is something you've heard about or have come across, that men are brought up to think they have a higher ego and they are in charge, while the women have to be managed.
And women believe it also.
Now this is what we're trying to act and say, okay, this is what society has groomed us to be. But it can change. If you look at these gender roles that society ascribes to men and women, they evolve over time. That's why we have countries like India where women pay bride price. Here in Uganda and in Africa, it's the men. So these roles are progressive. Today, like where we've been to Nebi, we've had communities where they say a woman cannot eat chicken, a woman cannot eat eggs. But when you talk to them and actually realize, and they realize these are just socially ascribed roles, then a woman will go and try eating chicken, and the thing will change. The situation will change. The status quo will be challenged.
Okay.
So it evolves over time, and that's why we believe that change can happen.
And the share of information works a lot.
And the share of information. This is the same, if we use the same approach on HIV prevalence, I believe it will change. Okay. Our rates will go down.
How has gender-based violence affected our societies?
Well, it has affected our society deeply in the economic status, political status, social status.
Really?
Yes.
We have big entrepreneurs in Uganda who are women.
Who are women.
Yes.
But what's the percentage? That would be the underlying reason. What is the percentage? Could we do better? Could we get more women to engage in
So what limits that
sectors?
Percentage from being that
one of the reasons
on
is
the side of the men?
Imagine there are some families where women are being denied to work. They're being denied the right to work. This man says, I can provide for you. Sit at home. I'll bring everything. But you've not given her a chance to work.
Something many of you women would love to enjoy.
Not necessarily. So they love it out of ignorance, I must say. But we have so much potential to exploit that if you find homes that have both men and women working, they are better homes. The rate of development is faster compared to homes where the man thinks he's superior and he can provide everything. So that could be one of the reasons. Our culture has set up standards that, you know, women take the back seat where the men will lead.
Okay. When you look at the political sector that you also talked about,
yes,
with all the MPs, the LC5, we have even had women standing for president here.
Yes.
And in 2011, we had the Honorable, was it Mama Miria, then Betty Kamya sometime, Maureen Chalia, the previous elections.
Yes. Yes.
You get, and you women, you have all voted for the men and left your Chalias away, the Betty Kamyas out. You again come here and blame people for
I guess,
not upholding your values.
The politics.
So don't you think women are to blame for whatever opportunity they miss out on?
Okay. I think if anyone stood up to be a leader, you'd look out for what are they capable of than their gender. You know, gender is not attached to the potential of somebody. We cannot attach potential of someone based on their gender. It's the ideas. What are you willing to do for the people?
No, but
it's not that I'm voting for you because you're a man.
I'm saying that
or
in
a
this
woman.
perspective. We have 7 candidates, and we see a Betty Kamya in the middle.
Yes.
You get? Directly, it would mean to a woman that definitely we have somebody to now champion our values without fear or favor, without even a second thought, because she knows exactly what we go through. What you do, you all rally behind President Museveni, a man, and you again keep complaining that you have no people to champion your values.
Think it's
so who is to blame, seriously?
I don't think, from a personal point of view, I don't think I would vote somebody because they are a woman or man. I would vote for their capacity of leadership. So perhaps the point of reflection would then be, do the women have the leadership capacities that the people want?
Tell me.
So that would be the point of reflection, than focusing on the fact that, oh, it's a woman, so we should all vote for her. No, I don't think that's quite
so
right.
It's not automatic that a woman will champion the values of
the
the
values
women.
of women, exactly.
Okay.
It
Then,
takes more than just being a man or woman.
and you people becoming more or too controversial that we may fail even to understand what we have to do for you. Because if one of you can, you don't believe any of you may champion your goals, then
okay,
what do you expect the rest of us to do?
You see, you're even beginning to have a patriarchal mindset that,
Myself.
yes, that you're thinking, what should we do for you? Maybe you should ask, what should we do for ourselves? Not what you should do for them. You know? So you're putting it in a sense that it's the men who have to do something for the women, for them to be in the right position for leadership, in the right position to champion for women's values. No.
Okay.
Yes.
So in that case, we're winding up this first segment. We have to take a break. Who is to blame for whatever violence that the women face?
Well, it's...
Let us look at the perpetrators first. We'll come with the other parts on return.
I think it's a multi-sectoral array that every different stakeholder has a role to play. The individual, the community, the government, the leaders. So we cannot say it's the women who are to blame. We cannot say it's the government. It's a consolidated action among all the different stakeholders. As individuals, what can we do? As the community, how empowering the women? As the government, what are the different affirmative actions we can put to empower women and girls?
Okay. Yes, Hazra, we're taking a very short break. On return, I want you to tell us who has to play what role. Yes, you have mentioned a number of different categories of people, the community, individuals, families. Who has to play what? Okay. That's where we're going to start from. You're watching Pick a Point here on UBC TV. In the next few minutes, you will even have a chance to call in and tell us what you think. We're looking at gender-based violence and its role when it comes to exposing women and young ladies to the scourge of HIV and AIDS. Do not miss what we have for you as we take a break. Keep watching.
Coming soon on UBC.
Omar Paskim is a successful man. He turned a small store into a real empire. Luxus, synonymous with ostentation and power. However, all his wealth is worthless to him now.
Eu estou muito doente, não é? Sim, está. Quanto tempo eu tenho de vida?
Running out of time, his last wish is that his fortune doesn't fall into the wrong hands.
O pai vai morrer, Leona. É por isso que eu quero que você seja minha herdeira.
Você é tudo que eu tenho.
The only one to gain the love and trust of her uncle, Belle awakens the jealousy and anger of the rest of the family and easily falls victim to the snakes and lizards.
O Estevão ele é muito apaixonado pela Belle, ele é capaz de tudo por ela. Eu faço gosto em qualquer coisa que faça a Belle feliz.
Que abutres.
Not trusting anything or anyone, Omar decides to disguise himself in order to find out who is who in this story.
Coming soon on UBC. Coming soon on UBC.
Passagem baixa foi essa? Algum de vocês aí deixou de me seguir? Não é quem comanda esse quadrilho melhor, somos nós.
Ai, eu te amo demais pra te ter de vez em quando.
Vem cá, vem.
Una disputa más que pierdo con mi amigo.
Y una trampa.
Te pido que hagas un viaje. La entrega de un lote de diamantes mezclados con diamantes. ¡Suéltenme todo! ¡Esto es una equivocación!
Flor del Caribe. Estreno 18 de abril, 4 de la tarde.
Viajar exportando diamantes.
Olha aqui, o Beto é o meu melhor amigo. Você acha que ele seria capaz de me colocar numa selada?
Esse é o anel de casamento usado pela minha avó e meu presente de noivado pra vocês.
Coming soon on UBC.
How can you really believe in some being up in the sky that you can't even see?
Sometimes you have to see with your heart.
I had a very strange dream. The Lord, in His infinite mercy, will reveal its meaning.
I lifted up and I looked down. Mom was in one room, you were in another room yelling at God.
For you, Lord, are righteous, yet we rebelled against your command.
We need to get him in surgery right away.
The pain that I suffered watching my son that close to death.
On the ocean.
We need a solution. We need it now.
And we'll get it.
How?
Into motion.
By not losing our faith.
Like how a single word. No, I've still got a lot of fire left in me.
I am the quest, giver of life, Alpha without Omega. I am Africa.
Hail to Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, a land with the world's most beautiful, captivating features. Hills, mountains and valleys, the enigmatic animal species in the wild. A land where Africa is condensed into one small country with authentic endowment of nature and perfect safari. Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, is without the crowds with abundant primates, wildlife and stunning scenery. Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, takes you beyond the guidebooks, the known features, and gives you the insights unmatched. Keep it UBC TV, where we inspire Uganda with authentic beauty and nature of our motherland. Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Discover the fountain.
Welcome back from the break. You're watching Pick a Point here on UBC TV, and we are still here with Ezra.
Yes.
Yes. And we're still concentrating on how gender-based violence can expose women especially and the young people to HIV and AIDS as we run towards the celebrations, commemorations of the World AIDS Day and the 16 days of creating awareness about gender-based violence. We are looking at all that in a package. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Let us move on. Yes, as we went for a break, I told you we would return and start from who has to play what role to see that our young ladies and ladies in general are protected from any form of violence. Yes, go on.
Just as I said earlier, when we have all actors on board in this cause of action, we have the individuals themselves.
What do they have to do? The ladies themselves, first of all.
The ladies themselves, it starts with...
Because in my view, there is something you're underlooking. I will not say naturally, but commonly, some people are just expectant of other people's efforts for their good.
Okay.
Yet, they also have a role to play to score what they have to score. So, what exactly is the role of the ladies or women?
Well, sometimes you cannot blame the victim for being in a state they are in. Perhaps it's how our society has groomed the girls to take the back seat and let the boys do the thing.
So what do they have to do to see themselves at the front?
And here we are saying, okay, if we can combine efforts and make the girls realize I'm equal to a boy, I have similar potential as the boy, I'm able to cultivate my future like the boy, not to be encouraged to, you know. We've had scenarios where you go to a meeting where there's a husband and a wife, for example, and you ask them, could you introduce yourselves? And the man will stand up and introduce himself and say, oh, I can also introduce my wife, as if she has no voice to speak. And we are encouraging the women to speak. Could you stand up and talk about yourself? And then the men actually realize, oh, she can actually speak. I didn't know my wife can speak in public. So it's challenging the status quo, challenging the culture that you as a woman, you have to take a back seat and let the men lead. So if you empower the individual and make them realize that even as individuals, they have a role to play. They can stand up for their rights. They can have voice. They can have the self-esteem to advocate for their rights and their spaces.
Let us take an example now. In the rural setting, what is the role of the community? What as a community do we have to do to say that we have vibrant women? We have women who can fight for their right, women who can fend for families and things like that.
I think one of the
because we can all come, agree
Yeah.
to come on board.
Yeah.
But when I come, what kind of a contribution do you expect of me?
Okay, so the community is being driven by culture, by history, that all our great-grandparents used to do this, so we're carrying it on. And sometimes these cultures are negative, are demeaning to the women. And we are coming to say, okay, these were history, but they're based on patriarchal principles. Can we have a more inclusive culture that lets a man be equal to a woman? So as a community, they have a role to play in eroding all these negative, harmful cultural practices. Just like there's an advancement towards eliminating FGM, that's female genital mutilation, in the northeastern part of Uganda, where they are actually realizing, because of the different affirmative action, that this act is inhuman, it's demeaning to the girls' rights are being abused. And so you can see that the trend is changing.
Yeah.
And we have some communities that have totally cut it out. So we believe that this vice that we have of gender-based violence, if we all act together, if government is involved, if the different civil society organizations are involved, the communities, the leaders, in advocating for eliminating these practices, then the issue of gender-based violence, because we believe it's deeply entrenched in the patriarchal system of our cultures.
One area you're not clear is what you expect them to do.
Yes.
Do you only expect government to say, please stop gender-based violence, and that is all?
No, you see, as sometimes if government speaks, or if civil society speaks, the message is not trickled down to the grassroots.
Yes.
But if you have the local leaders championing this message, the community championing this message, that, you know, the rights of women are supreme, we need to advocate for them, we need to eliminate gender-based violence, then the message will be delivered to the right people, and I believe change can happen.
What are you going to do in this kind of campaign, for example? The women yourselves, the owners of the rights, the beneficiaries of everyone's effort.
Okay.
What is the contribution? What are you coming with on board?
As women.
Because government will come with the policies.
Yes.
Communities will try to change the cultures, like you are saying. Fine. Where are the people that we are trying to fight for?
Well, first of all, they will demand for their rights. For example, in a home where a girl is being told to stay at home because they only have money for the boy to go to school, and she will say, no, I deserve to be at school just like the boy. So if the women, first of all, can demand for their rights, because sometimes they are voiceless and have been spoken for.
But we have also seen families where everyone is given school fees to go to school. A young lady says, I've met a boyfriend and I think I have to get married to this man before anyone else takes him.
That's a combination of many things. Because, first of all, when you say a girl is born and that is sukari, that's sugar, as she grows up, even when you're moving with your daughter on the street and someone say, oh, you have sugar. That happens a lot. That's sugar. And then, so this girl grows up knowing my final destination is a marriage. So that's why she will be able to think, oh, if I miss this chance. We have some parents who tell their girls, if you finish university without a husband, don't come back home. And so this girl will be pressured to land in a wrong relationship that will have intimate partner violence, because the parent has told them you have to finish university, come back with a man. So if the girls can stand up and demand for their rights and say, parents or teachers or lecturers, my final destination is not a man's home, a marriage, I have a huge potential, a bright future ahead of me, then...
Do those girls that succeed in life succeed because they have demanded?
They are a combination of many things. Perhaps they are assertive. Some of the people in our societies have privileges. Perhaps you have educated parents, exposed parents who know the bright side of education. But then also we have those who think, you know, a girl will go away and take all the wealth to the man's family. So it all comes back to, if girls are more assertive, they have voice, agency, they're able to demand for their rights, then you'll be able to eliminate the violence, or this, the society has screamed it that girls don't want to go to school or they want to have boyfriends. No.
So what steps in the channel of communication that bars the girls from accessing the information you're sharing with us here?
One, there are so many factors.
Because gender-based violence has been talked about so much. In fact, it's not about only the girls. Why do you think there is rampancy of the problem, even when we have so much talked about it, not only here but everywhere?
When you say so much talked about it, I cannot digest that, because you can walk to a village, for example, in Nembi district, and both the leaders, the teachers, the girls have not heard about this. It has become a norm in a society for a woman to be beaten, for a man to be polygamous, and it's okay, while polyandry is unheard of. It's okay for a girl to stay at home while the boy goes to school. A girl has to wake up at 5 while the boy wakes up at 7. She has to wake up to do house chores before everybody. So the society has normalized the violence. So it's not so much heard of like you may say. So the action is there, the message is has gone to some places, but some places it hasn't reached. And we still need to spread it further. We still need to join the rest of the world to, in this cause of action, that gender-based violence.
I have
has
my
to
good
stop.
friends, a group where you belong. It's called the civil society.
Yes.
They have all the information. Which information the end users normally, commonly don't digest, because they may hear it and not take it. You didn't tell us what their role is in this.
The civil society.
Yes, because some people are faulting them on many counts when it comes to solving these social problems, which exactly look to be their work.
I think one of the things is we are learning. We are learning and refining our methodologies. Sometimes we just impose a methodology from a different country and impose it on our societies.
Where it's not applicable.
Where it's not applicable.
Okay.
But with time, you refine your methodologies and say, okay, this didn't work. What could be the possible reasons? So as civil society, when we go back to the planning table, we said, this didn't work well, but it worked in such and such a country. How do we refine it to suit the context in which we are working in? So that sometimes when we go to communities and you talk about gender-based violence, nobody will even, they will not be amused.
Sounds alien.
Yes, it sounds very foreign. But when you ask them to act in their context, how violence happens, and then they say, oh, so this is the gender-based violence. Beating is not a sign of love. Having many wives is not a sign of being a man or being powerful. It just perpetuates poverty, deprivation, and unhappiness.
That is what MEMPROW does.
So as MEMPROW is mentoring and empowerment program for young women. We started in 2008, and we started working with girls and young women in schools and out of school, and those in university. Then later we realized, actually, these girls are not the only members of the society.
Yes.
We have the leaders, we have the religious institutions, we have the police, we have the health workers. So we started to broaden our approach on if we want to help, if the end user is a girl, how do you help her? So we train schools, we go to a school and conduct a 2-week program in social survival skills training, where we engage 30 girls in understanding their bodies, self-esteem, the mind mapping. We ask them to, what do they envision? Who do they want to be in future? And at the start of the training, you find a girl saying, I want to be a nurse. But by the end of the training, because she only sees a nursing institute in her
the idea changes.
So the idea changes. In 2 weeks, she's able to say, I want to become a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. So the aspirations are heightened as we engage them further. Then we also realize some of the teachers are the perpetrators of violence. How do we act with them? How do we work with them to support the girls to stay in school? So we engage teachers in what we call gender awareness training, where we actually get them to understand the gender. And then they are able to integrate gender in their everyday teaching, and they become gender
Activities
sensitive.
in school.
Because we have had a teacher in Nebi telling a girl, you're too big, because girls join primary school later, much later than in the urban areas, where a teacher will stand up and say, you're too big to be in this class, in maybe P4. Go and get married. And this girl will feel out of
demoralized,
place, gets demoralized, and she'll see no future in being in this class where she's believed to be, too big. So we've worked with teachers, and we've seen commendable progress in teachers becoming gender sensitive. Then we've also gone ahead to work with institutions like the police, the health workers, because the girls, when they're sexually harassed, they'll go to police, they'll go to...
These are the people that handle their issues.
They handle their issues. So that we don't have a police saying, what were you wearing when you were raped? Why? What were you doing at that time of the night? You know?
So you have a different methodology. That's what you said.
Yes,
is where you would agree with whoever may fault the civil society. It's about the methodology.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
It's a process.
We just have 2 minutes to leave the set.
Okay.
We are having the week for 16 days of
gender activism.
Gender activism.
Yes.
Creating awareness about gender, whatever,
Best
and
violence,
World
yes.
AIDS Day.
Yes.
Let's start with gender activism. What is your message to whoever is watching and has a concern?
Okay, my message is there is no justification for violence in whatever context. Let's not normalize violence. That it happens and then you blame the victim. The perpetrators should be punished and our laws should be emphasized. For example, we have the Domestic Violence Act that was passed in 2010. But you find that it has not been implemented. There is no budget that advocates for the implementation of this budget in the grassroots.
Okay.
Yes.
World AIDS Day.
Yes.
Yes.
One, it starts with us understanding that our HIV rates are not going down. They're just increasing, and we need to do something about it.
The girls you're protecting, their figures, I saw 23% of the young girls. In school, that's the rate of their infection. 23% of the school girls.
Yes.
What do you comment about that?
Again, if we share information, if the girls have access to, for example, PEP is post-exposure prophylaxis. That's given to prevent HIV within 72 hours. But you find that even in the hospitals, most times it's not there, or it's at a fee. Yet a schoolgirl cannot afford it. So if we have, for example, government and civil society putting this agenda forward that, you know,
this has to be done.
This has to be done. And our HIV rates are increasing. We need to do something about it.
Thank you so much. Ezra Okem, the programs coordinator at MEMPROW. Yes. World AIDS Day is Friday.
Yes.
When do you start that, the 16 days?
The 16 days started on 25th November and it ends on 10th December.
Thank you so much. So it starts with us. And here at Pick a Point, we ensure that we give you the information, the accessibility that Ezra talks about, I don't think is for us to blame. So go test for your HIV status and get to know exactly where you belong. It will tell you what next step to take. If you're torturing a woman or a lady in any way, you need to think again, because you are very many miles behind where the world has reached. Michael Jordan Lokoma is my name. We have to give you room to watch news. That is all we had for you tonight. Bye-bye. Ezra, thank you.